Welcome to Sportsbet Daily at Oddsmarket.com. We're off to the Far East today. We've got the WTA China, ATP China and the ATP in Japan. Tokyo there being the place of residence. But before that, we're going to go to Rugby World Cup with Japan. And Russ is our man. Russ, how are you?
Very good, Flash. How are you doing?
Good, good. What do you make of it so far? Is it New Zealand all the way?
It looks that way. They've played very well so far. Obviously, beating South Africa in the first game was a big statement, given South Africa as second favourites. England have gone about their business quite well. They've obviously got some tougher pool matches to come with Argentina, then France. Ireland shock defeat to Japan has put them on the back burner. But for me, New Zealand, still in pole position.
Okay, and what about the likes of Australia getting beat by Wales? Was that much of an upset?
No, Wales were slight favourites, and as the result turned out, Wales won by a few points. Wales dominated the first half. Australia came back well second half, but Wales' defence managed to hold on for the win, and now Wales in pole position to win that pool group.
Okay, well, let's crack on then. First game we're going to look at is Georgia versus Fiji. Georgia +8, Fiji -8. The draw 22-1. That's inclusive of the spread. Where are you going with this one?
We're going Georgia to win between 1 and 12 points. I think the odds are wrong here. Georgia beat Uruguay, but Uruguay beat Fiji. So for me, I'd have the handicap spread a lot closer, and Georgia have gone about their business really well. Fiji anti-post were the ones that the people fancied. They called us Australia a shock. They didn't, and obviously then losing their second game to Uruguay, they're virtually out now. So if Georgia turn up and play as well as they did against Uruguay, I think they can get the job done.
And there'll be a decent price on the money line, I guess, so you wouldn't even need to go for the Georgia to win by 1 to 12.
Absolutely. I think it's 5-2, so 3.5 to win on the money line. Again, it's 4.3 Georgia to win between 1 to 12 points with Labrooks is what I've put up. But either of the two works.
Yeah, it certainly does. It certainly does. Let's move on then. We'll go to the Emerald Isle. Ireland -53 against Russia. 53 is a lot in any kind of sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that was the second shock of the Rugby World Cup, Ireland losing to Japan. It was a fantastic and fascinating game. Ireland leading at half-time, but as they came out the second half, Japan had all the momentum and their backs really pushed Ireland deep back into their territory. And although Japan still made a few handling errors, they just had enough to get the job done. And Ireland looked devout of ideas. I think the temperature got to them. And Japan deserved to win in the end.
What way would you go here with Ireland and Russia? Would you take the points?
Yeah, I think 53 is just probably around, I think, about 5 to 7 points too much for me on the handicap. So, I'm going to take Russia 53 even money with Bet365. Russia are one of the minnows, if not probably second to worst team in the Rugby World Cup. Ireland will get back to winning ways. It was a huge shock to lose to Japan. So if they're going to go deep into the competition, they need to get back on track. They will win. They will score 4 tries that will get them the bonus point. But to win by 53 plus, I just think it's 5 to 7 points too much.
Yeah, I mean, that's 7.5 try favourites. That's a big old margin. Okay, here's a game that you probably, these teams know a little bit more about each other. It's South Africa versus Italy. South Africa -28, Italy +28. Do you think 28 is about right?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. Thus, the handicap is something I'm not going to look at. Italy have won both their pool games so far. But look, this you're coming up against one of the world's best, and again, although Italy have shown a lot of flair currently in the World Cup, look, they're going to lose here. So I'm going with 3.75 South Africa to win between 21 and 30 points. if you look at how many points Italy lose by against the top sides, it does range pretty much between the 20 to 30 point margin. So I think that's the one which I think is more likely to happen than not. That's the pick I've put up on Oddsmarket.
Okay, and we've got New Zealand, still the favourites, around 2.15 or 6 to 5 and 5 to 4 in maybe A place. New Zealand still the ones to beat for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I said their opening game, they beat South Africa well. When we were on last week, Flash, we thought it'd be a lot tighter and put up South Africa +8, but New Zealand won quite handsomely. Now they've got a lot of very, very easy games in the remaining pool matches. And then obviously we're just seeing who they will come up against in the quarterfinals, which now Ireland got beat. Again, New Zealand could have a very comfortable quarterfinal, which means it's 2 games away from victory. And again, the deep squad they have, the confidence they'll have going into those 2 matches. Yeah, I think the price is absolutely spot on.
Okay, Russ, I'll let you go. Thanks. Keep up the good work, mate. Keep us updated with everything, and we'll probably see you in a few days.
Brilliant, Flash. Have a good rest of the show.
Cheers, Russ. Go well, mate.
Cheers, take care.
That's Russ Yers, and he's given us everything from the Rugby World Cup in Japan. I'm going to stay in the Far East. We're going to go WTA China now, and normally it's James and Snize, but today James is going to fly solo. James, how are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, Flash. How was your weekend?
Yeah, busy. Sport is just going absolutely crazy, but listen, there's worse jobs. How do you find this sort of time zone when so many of these games are on either in the middle of the night or very early morning? Do you still get to see them all?
Yeah, so this is a tricky one for people in the West. I mean, I think I don't see as much as I would have liked. You have to watch it all on replay. Sometimes the matches don't even get replays. But yeah, I mean, you can very much catch up quite quickly. I tend to watch a lot of matches after they've been played already, so I can skip through them in 10, 20 minutes. So yeah, it's not too bad.
Okay, and in WTA China, and obviously we've got the ATP China and the ATP Tokyo. So let's just start off with the WTA China. Andreescu is obviously back in action. Bianca to her friends, and we are her friends. I see that she's 4 to 7, which is obviously about like 1.6, but 1.94 minus 2.5 points against Mertens. That seems a massive price.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Andreescu's been very kind to us here at Oddsmarket, especially Snize, who, of course, will be very unhappy not to be here talking about her. But yeah, this is one of those matches where the prices don't look huge, but it's very much the kind of match where I think I have a strong read on what's likely to happen. The most basic way to put it is keep backing her until it stops working. I mean, Andreescu has been the story of 2019. She's played so well all year, and whenever you've questioned whether she'll be able to keep it up, she's always managed to do that. So in this matchup, there's a few key factors to it. I think the first one to point out, Andreescu's won her last 2 events. That's 14 matches in a row. She's won 46 of 51 matches in 2019, and you would have made 63.3% just blind backing her in every single match. I mean, that's ridiculous. You never really see that with anyone on tour. So that's the first point. She generally does her best work as the underdog, but actually in this situation, she's still excellent as the favorite. She's won 33 of 36 as the favorite in 2019, and in 30 of those, the handicap has landed. So there's very little reason to think that she's not going to be doing well in these situations generally. Mertens is not a player that I would take on hard courts with anyone. She's quite strong on the hard courts generally, and she can cause the better players issues. But I mean, they played at the US Open very recently. Andreescu actually dropped the first set there, but she still won by 4 games. And again, something similar wouldn't surprise me. It's kind of what happened in the first round with Andreescu. She started a bit slowly and then was very dominant after that. And so, if you look at Mertens when she's playing the top 20 at this kind of price range, so she's priced 2.37 in this match, and she's priced 2 to 3. She's played 21 matches. She's lost 17 of them. Which would have netted a minus 52% return if you'd bet on her every time. And the handicap landed in every single loss. So it seems like taking the extra, few points on the handicap is definitely the play in this match, as opposed to just taking the win.
Okay, how dangerous is Mertens? Is there like, would it be much of a shock if she did beat her?
It's difficult to say. Mertens hasn't had a great year this year. She's only won 58% of matches. Again, compare that to Andreescu, who's won 90%. I mean, it's very difficult to compare those two players on recent form. I think if you asked me a year ago, it would have definitely not been a surprise. I think now, to me, 2.37 looks a little bit short. It looks like she'd probably need to play a bit above the level she's shown recently to be able to do that.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty strong. I'm with you all the way here, by the way. I've not quite gone all in, but I thought the 1.94 was probably the value bet across all sports. So let's hope the minus 2.5 comes in. Anything else from WTA China you want to bring up?
So I think in China, I'm slightly hesitant to get involved with the outright side of it at this point. Snize wrote an excellent article about this at the start of the week, which goes into a lot of depth. And I think a couple of people that he mentioned. So you have Bencic and Andreescu. They're both players that we've backed before, and for good reason. Bencic in the top half, Andreescu in the bottom half. I think this is the kind of situation where the prices don't jump out as being excellent. But at the same time, it seems quite clear to me that they're both players who've been defying the trends. They've been able to go deep a lot more than the odds tend to suggest. And I think they're both in halves so with Andreescu, for example, she would be directly opposing Osaka. And I think there are lots of obvious reasons to think that Osaka, is a very reasonable favorite in that half, but that she's also not shown anywhere near the same value as Andreescu. And if that's going to continue to be the case, then I think Andreescu is definitely, a good shout in the bottom half. I think she's 7, and then Bencic 17 in the top. So they both could go well. As I say, I would probably point you towards Snize's article.
Okay, that's excellent. Okay, we're going to go over to the ATP China now. And one you've picked out is Zhang plus 4.5 at 2.1 against Thiem.
Yeah, so it's difficult with this match because when you look at Thiem against someone like Zhang, he's 200 ranking places, more than 200 ranking places higher. I mean, Thiem's 5 in the world, Zhang is 226. If you look at the 1-year whole break, Thiem leads by 11.4%. So you can see why Thiem is being priced up as a 1.14 favorite here. It does make sense based on the simple raw stats, but they kind of hide his weaknesses. His big weaknesses come on hard courts, and particularly at the end of the year. So as an example, in China, he has a 4-8 record, which is awful, and he's lost several matches as a favorite in the past few years. When he's been priced sub 1.5 in China, which is always comes towards the end of the year, and it's always on hard courts. So this is where Thiem struggles. So he's played 6 matches priced sub 1.5, and in only one of those matches has he been able to cover this handicap. Now, more broadly, when you look at Thiem on hard courts, he's played 46 matches priced sub 1.5 in non-slam matches, and in 16 of those, he's covered the handicap. That's just a third of those matches, and yet we can get 2.09 or 2.1 on Zhang to cover that handicap here. And that includes only 3 of 13 since 2018 he's been able to cover there. Now, Zhang is the kind of player that is deceptively good based on his ranking. He's a young player, 22. He's 6'4". Very power-based game. He's been playing excellent tennis recently. He won his maiden challenger in September, despite being the underdog in 5 of the 6 matches he played. Wow. He then backed that up at the start of this tournament by beating world number 32, Kyle Edmund, which kind of leads to the only problem you might have with Zhang is that he's never played anyone close as ranked as Thiem. I mean, Thiem's 5 in the world. The highest ranked player he's played actually happens to be Edmund at 32. But I think based on the overall stats, if you look at him priced over 3, he's actually won 7 of 12 matches this year, and he's covered the handicap in 9 of the last 10. I mean, those are phenomenal numbers, and he may well get caught cold and be outclassed by Thiem, but based on what I've seen overall, it seems much more likely that he'll rise to the occasion, and he'll be able to at least push Thiem, give him a bit of a test, and keep it tight.
And a good point going forward. Okay, ATP Tokyo next. You've selected Djokovic versus Soeda, under 19.5 at 1.73. Some books are not even offering you under in the games.
Yeah, so I think this is actually a little bit longer now with Pinnacle, but yeah, certainly anything over 1.7 I think is a good bet. This is a slightly difficult one to quantify here. You've got Djokovic coming back from retiring at the US Open against Wawrinka. He was clearly not fit in that tournament. So there was a lot of question marks coming into Tokyo, how he would do. He tends to do well this week of the year. He's won Beijing before, and it's interesting that he's decided to go for Tokyo. I was slightly surprised by that. But I think looking at him in the first round, he beat Papirin 4-2. He looked pretty solid to me. He didn't give up a single break point. So those are positive signs. He rarely tends to lose as a short price favorite. So he's won 39 of 40 in 2019. And often against the weaker underdogs, of which Soeda is definitely a weaker underdog, he tends to win very comfortably. So Soeda he's 35 years old. And clearly on the decline. He did have a very good win against Struff last round, but I would personally put that down more to Struff than Soeda. Soeda's record against the top 50 is 0-23 when he's priced over 6. So he's never won a single match. And actually, when you look at him against the top 10, he's 0 for 7, and in 6 of those, the underbet has landed comfortably. So again, Djokovic is the best returner in the world. I would expect this match to be easier than his opening match, and he won his opening match 6-4, 6-2, which would have seen this bet land. So more of the same would be my expectation. And yeah, I certainly would have had this line a bit shorter than 19.5.
Okay, and a bit of value on this and on one of the outrights, and you've got Basilashvili at 21. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of companies that are a lot less than that, but the 21 looks well.
Yeah, so this is actually for ATP Beijing. So you've got Basilashvili is 21. The big question with Basil is always how well he'll play. He has one of the higher peaks on tour. He actually won this event last year, beating Del Potro in the final, which was a big shock. The Argentine wasn't at his best, but it was a phenomenal performance from Basil all week. He clearly enjoys the conditions here. I mean, Beijing is a kind of slightly weird event, and that it has a low amount of tie breaks and it has a fairly low hold percentage, which tends to signal slower conditions. But actually, the court itself plays quite fast. It's a Deco Turf outdoor court, which tends to mean that it's going to be a pretty quick off the bounce. And Basil likes that. He likes to have a bit more time overall, but he also very much gets a lot out of the extra pace because he's a shot maker. That's how he tends to play. I think this is basically a case of opposing the seeds in this tournament. I mean, Beijing is generally not a good tournament to oppose the seeds in, but actually I think this year a lot of the top of the field look weak. So Basil beat Payer in his first round. He'd then have Tsitsipas in the second round. Seeded player would be Isner in the third round, which is the quarterfinal. And then in the semi, he'd have Alex Zverev, and in the final team. So looking at that draw, virtually all of the players in that draw, to me, are opposable, especially in China on hard courts. I mean, Tsitsipas had injury issues last out. He retired. He then come to this event. He won in 3 tight sets against Lajovic in the first round. So that form marker for me probably puts him about in line with how Basil's playing, and he's a lot shorter. Then you have Isner in the quarterfinals, who has a dreadful record in China, although he did surprise me by beating Monfils in the first round. In the semis, you have Alex Zverev, who we've gone on about all year. Opposing him has been the easiest money we've had all year, and eventually he'll come good. But for now, I'm happy to continue that trend. And then finally, Thiem, who I've already covered briefly with the other bet. He's just not that good on the hard courts, especially in China. It's not an event that I would imagine he'll be looking forward to. That's the kind of situation where Basil is a player who clearly does play well here, and you've got a bunch of players who don't. So I'm happy to take a punt at that price.
And would you have a little bit of Basil around the 2.6? He's a dog against Tsitsipas. So would you say that he was worth the having a little bit on a single?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he was 2.62 when we looked against Tsitsipas. And that definitely seems long. He's drifting out from, I think, 2.25, 2.3 which he was earlier. That's probably a fair price. I mean, I do feel like this match will be pretty even. It's always difficult to factor in correctly things like Tsitsipas's injury issues. But yeah, certainly at 2.62, that's worth a bet.
Okay, James. Well, let's hope that Bianca does the business. I'll be smiling. It'll put us any of them dodgy results from the Champions League that are going to be going on. I think that Bianca will be able to put a few plasters over them. Thanks for your work, mate. Good luck, and hopefully we'll have Snize back soon and still waxing lyrical about Bianca.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks a lot, Flash.
Cheers, James. Good luck, mate. That's James, tennis pilot. No Snize, but James is more than adequate to hold the fort. Coming up tomorrow, La Liga, Bundesliga and Serie A. And we're also going to have UFC from Dave Betts and Jace from the Sports Keg. Until then, see you soon.